with how Shedeur Sanders balled out in the Browns' first preseason game against the Panthers, you would have expected for the Browns to bump him up on the depth chart. However, going into their second preseason game against the Eagles, the Browns still have Shedeur Sanders trapped in the doghouse. He still is quarterback 4 on the depth chart. At this point, the NFLPA needs to step in and they need to launch an investigation against the Browns for colluding against Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur has been the best quarterback on the Browns roster all throughout training camp. He leads the team in touchdowns, completion percentage, and he has committed the least amount of turnovers. With how well he played in that preseason game last week, he showed that he should have been drafted a lot higher than where the Browns were able to luck up and get him at. But the issue with Shedeur Sanders is he's trying to fight against the Browns' politics. You see, these coaches, these front office executives, they have big egos. They don't like looking wrong. And the Browns are still refusing to admit that Shedeur Sanders is better than Dillon Gabriel solely because of where they took Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel has been the worst quarterback throughout this point in training camp. And the Browns taking him over Shedeur Sanders was already outrageously idiotic. There was nothing about Dillon Gabriel that screamed franchise quarterback. At his best, he's a good bridge start quarterback for you. He's a guy that can win you a few games, get you by for a season until you find your long-term answer at quarterback in the draft. But at best, Dillon Gabriel, if he reaches his potential, he's like a bottom 25 quarterback in the league. Shedeur Sanders has more upside than what Dillon Gabriel has. He's a better athlete. He has a stronger arm. That's another thing about why the Dillon Gabriel selection was weird by the Browns. Dillon Gabriel, he doesn't have the right skill set to win in the kind of conditions that the Browns are going to be playing in for the majority of this season. Once you get into early October and the weather starts to change, it gets really cold, it starts to snow, Dillon Gabriel becomes ineffective because he has a weak arm. He's not a great athlete. He's not that big. So the Browns offense will get limited if they have to rely on Dillon Gabriel to start for them as compared to Shedeur, who doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but he has a way more stronger arm than what Dillon Gabriel has. And Shedeur Sanders has proven throughout training camp and throughout early during this preseason that he by far clears Dillon Gabriel. But the Browns can't admit that, though. They still have to try to justify that Dillon Gabriel was worth being drafted over Shedeur, even though the results tell us otherwise. And the Browns politicking is the prime reason why they've been one of the worst franchises in all of sports for over 2 decades. Because bad organizations, what they do, instead of starting the best players, the most talented players, they start guys because of where they were drafted. They start guys because of favoritism. They start guys because of politics. And that's what the Browns are currently doing right now with their quarterback battle. Instead of admitting that Shedeur is the best quarterback on the team, they got to try to justify trading for Kenny Pickett, who's been nothing more but a backup quarterback in this stage of his career. They got to justify trading for a sub 6-foot quarterback with a noodle arm. Dillon Gabriel is the diet version of Tua Tagovailoa. You know how they have Coke and then you have Diet Coke? Or when you go to Walmart and you have Fruit Loops on one side and right next to it you have the Great Value brand Fruit Loops. Dillon Gabriel is like going to Walmart, buying past the real Fruit Loops, picking up the Great Value brand Fruit Loops, and the Browns are choosing Great Value brand Fruit Loops over the real official Fruit Loops and Shedeur Sanders. We know that the Great Value Fruit Loops don't taste as good as the real Fruit Loops, but the Browns want to try to justify that the Great Value brand Fruit Loops tastes better than the actual Fruit Loops. Shedeur is the Fruit Loops. Dylan Gabriel is the Great Value brand Fruit Loops. But the Browns, for some reason, they like how the Great Value brand Fruit Loops taste more than the actual Fruit Loops. Jimmy Haslam has made a lot of mistakes. He drafted Johnny Manziel. He signed off on giving Diddy Deshaun $230 million fully guaranteed. And now he's been blessed to correct all of the misses that he has had at quarterback with Shedeur Sanders, but yet he wants to ignore the blessing. Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, they want to ignore the blessing that Shedeur Sanders is, all for the sake of trying to pump up their egos and try to justify that Dylan Gabriel has the ability to be something that he never will be, which is a franchise quarterback. There was an article that came out a week and a half after the NFL draft. Anonymous college coaches that played against Shedeur Sanders were asked about his draft slide and how good they believed that he would be in the NFL. And all of them said that they were shocked that he fell as far as what he did. And they also, most of them said that he should be a solid quarterback in the league. Now, most of them agreed that he wouldn't be an elite quarterback, but they viewed him around the realm of a Kirk Cousins and a Dak Prescott, which if the Browns can get a Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins kind of career out of Shedeur Sanders, that's great considering how atrocious their quarterback play has been over the last 2 decades. If you give Shedeur Sanders a good enough team, he can win you a Super Bowl. But for some reason, though, the Browns want to collude against Shedeur. They want to try to justify their bad decision-making. I mean, not only did they draft Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, but they drafted Quinshon Judkins in the 2nd over Travion Henderson. And Quinshon Judkins, with the legal situation that he's in right now, he might not even play a single down in the NFL. So the Browns have already whiffed on 2 draft picks, Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Gabriel, but they don't want to take the L with Dylan Gabriel yet, so they got to try to prop him up over Shedeur. We all know that Shedeur Sanders has been the best quarterback on this Browns team. The numbers don't lie. You look at that quarterback tracker after every training camp session, Shedeur is always the most consistent. He's always the guy taking care of the football. He's always the guy being the most efficient despite the lack of snaps and the lack of opportunities that he has received, and he hasn't made any excuses. He's rose to the occasion. He rose to the occasion last week against the Panthers. He threw 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, looked perfect despite playing with guys that he didn't have a lot of chemistry with, no timing at all with, and still made it work. But the Browns, they look at how well Shedeur Sanders played against the Panthers last week, and they say, cool, we don't care. You're still quarterback 4. This is collusion. The NFLPA needs to get involved. Training camp and the preseason has showed us that Shedeur is the best quarterback on this damn team. So it makes no damn sense why the Browns continue to keep Shedeur Sanders in the freaking doghouse. Now, you can say that Shedeur should ask for a trade, which would make sense in this situation, but who's going to trade for Shedeur? A lot of the teams that need Shedeur right now, they passed on him in the draft. Their minds aren't going to change over 2-3 months. They still are going to feel the same way about Shedeur as what they did during the draft. The only teams that would trade for Shedeur are the ones that already have solid quarterback play. Shedeur's best opportunity to start is with the Browns, believe it or not. So he kind of has no choice but to ride this situation out, as effed up as what it is and as stupid as what it currently is also.